For those of you that may not be able to hear.
That was my little violin action. In case anyone had trouble distinguishing.
What are we doing?
Okay. Can we? No, keep this playing. This would make such good floor music. Oh. For gymnastics? Music? Yeah, for choreography. If you had an elegant dancing routine, it's not going to be a power routine.
Oh, definitely not. I would definitely prefer something that's a little bit more upbeat
and powerful.
And gets the crowd. It gets the crowd going. Like,
this would get the crowd going just by everybody's familiarity with it. And if the choreography was correct for the music, it would be great. And you
I prefer to your excellence.
You could cut it so that there's more excitement, because it only needs to be a minute and a half, and this goes on for a long time. So you could cut it to specific.
And I am William Jamar Wright.
And I'm Hattie.
And welcome to our podcast. This episode, kind of did that in reverse, but this episode, of course, we're going to be talking about the Game of Thrones series. As it has just ended. It's a long time coming.
Yes.
But what a great series. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I really did too.
And it's funny, like, I would have never known about it if it wasn't for you. Like, you introduced me to the series that is the Game of Thrones, and you're like, we gotta watch this. Like, it is so good. And, like, I remember, like, back when it was, like, used to come on.
Also, for the record, I introduced him to Star Wars as well. So, you had never seen Star Wars before you started dating.
No, I had not seen Star Wars before we started dating. But, like, I would say my mom, like, I bought the whole series because my mom, like, wanted to, like, that was her childhood favorite. Like, one of her videos, like, movies that she grew up on. And, like, it was her birthday. It was, like, well, I'm going to get it for my mom, so I might as well, like, binge all weekend and watch it. So I would give credit to my mom and not you. So.
But you lived your whole life, and yet you hadn't seen it until I came into the picture.
Well, there are a lot of things I hadn't done until you came into the picture. Which,
True.
Like, I'm not, like, True. You have definitely been a positive influence. But I'm not giving you Star Wars. Sorry. Game of Thrones.
We're going to agree to disagree on this one. Game of Thrones, we can agree on. Okay.
And it's funny, like, I used to go to work, and I had a coworker, and he would, like, watch it every Sunday, like, religiously. And it would be him and a couple other coworkers that'd be like, did you watch Game of Thrones last night? Like, it was so good. Like, you get so enthralled in it. And this is probably, like, season 3 or 4. And I'm like, I ain't got time for that. Like,
no, I didn't watch.
Yeah, so I literally had no idea what was going on, but I would sit in the office and talk about it, and I'd be like, I'm not going to spend my time like going to watch this. But lo and behold, they were right. It is a very like good, really, really well written series, and I'd be interested to go back and like read the books, but from what I've heard, the books are like unbelievably long. Like,
yes, I have tried to read the books. So there's many of them, and the first book and the first season of the show track each other very closely, and I loved that because I'm the type of person that always reads the books, and I 9 times out of 10 enjoy the books more than any movie or TV series. However, in this one. The book in the second season and the TV series start diverging a little bit, and I think it's less of a. So I don't know if I got through the second book or not and started the third, or if I got bogged down in the second book. So I can't necessarily claim. Yeah, I can't necessarily claim that they diverge. That's my foot. Doesn't need to move.
Well, I thought it was like the remote or something. It was like piercing my side.
Oh, sorry. So. Pulling my foot out. I'm like sitting on my leg. What was I saying? So I can't claim whether or not the books and the TV show diverge, or if it's just that the TV show only has so much time and can't talk about every single minor character.
Yes.
And it, you know, skips over some unimportant details. Because those are two different things. Like, the main storyline stays the same, and you just lose some of the detail, versus there's actual differences in storyline. But what was so hard for me, I mean, even in the first series, there's so many different characters, and watching on TV, it's hard enough to remember names and who's connected to who and how they're involved.
It is very difficult.
But it's still so much more easy when you have a face to put to it, whereas when you're reading, it's 10 times harder, because there's also a lot more of these smaller, minor characters. Yes. And by the time I got to the second book, I was just like, who is this? What is that? Like, where are we going with? Because the other thing that I do when I read pretty quickly, and so if there's long names or names that are not very common, I don't really sound out the name in my brain. I just like take a mental note of this shape of word. It starts with this letter, you know, refers to this individual. So it's like a symbol placeholder in my mind.
I don't need to know who this character is.
Right, so it's an even more abstract representation of the person than like sounding out the name or associating the name with someone I know in real, you know, just
yes.
So it's just another further step of who is this and what is happening. So that's why reading the first book and watching along with the show was really useful. But yeah, just, you know, what I got time for that.
Well, so like going along with like.
Oh, but anyway, sorry to interrupt you. One thing though is that the writer of the books was involved with the TV show. So I do know that whatever artistic licenses they made or divergences they made from the books came with approval and also with input from. So not just, here's this idea, what do you think? But it was more like, how can we adapt this for TV? Please help. So I think that makes the whole thing a lot more cohesive. And along those same lines, he wasn't finished writing the series before the TV show ended.
And I think that played a huge part in like the final season.
Yes.
And a lot of people's like not like they didn't get. I don't feel like based off what I saw on Twitter, like there was not true full like fulfillment in like the final season.
Yes, and I think that you could very much notice. I mean, there's that obviously, but just a different style, a different tone. Like you could tell that the thinking in the last season was not the same as the thinking in all the other seasons, and I think that points directly to these were well thought out in the books, extremely well characterized. You know, many years of development and drafts, versus the final season was just kind of like, we got to tie this all up together, and it did. And yes, the author of the books was involved, but it was still not like, once the books are written, it's fully his tone, his style, you know, and now when he's collaborating with other people, it's no longer fully his tone, his style, whatever.
Yeah,
so I think it was very clear that it's like, this is separate from those in many ways.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because like even in the book though, like you said, like around book 2 and like book 3, the series and the book kind of diverged in terms of the tracks, but like it doesn't seem to you, like it seems that it didn't become very noticeable until the final season of the show.
Yeah, and like I said, I can't necessarily say the plot lines actually diverged versus stuff was just left out, but more of like, you see how the author's mind works, and you see how he has, there are lots of recurring themes, there's lots of recurring patterns, and the way that, like, very rarely does a character just, like, up and get killed instantly. Like, there's, well, I don't want to say that necessarily. What I'm trying to say is the way that conflicts are resolved in most of the rest of the seasons was not the way that conflicts were resolved in this final season.
Okay.
And so that's what I mean in terms of, you see how the author deals with things, you see how the author's mind works.
Yes.
And it was just very clear that there was two different minds, whether it's like one person or a collaboration, dictating how seasons 1 through 7 went and how the last one went.
Yeah.
Was it 8 seasons?
I think it was 8.
Okay. The first few and then the very last one. Like,
yeah.
There's just a difference between
Yes.
the last one and everything.
Well, it's funny. Like I kind of got this feeling towards the end of the second to last season, and then all of this, like the last season, I felt like the movies, or I felt like basically we were watching a movie every Sunday, but it was definitely more of like a cinematography like feel. Like
Yes.
they wanted to impress upon us like the visual of the dragons.
It's very
and, like,
visually stunning.
Yes.
Yes. And I feel like a lot more attention was paid to those details.
Yes.
More emphasis, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that goes along with like the big movie productions that we've seen like released over like recently. Just like technology and like not so much. There was plot to it, but like that wasn't the main focus of the like
Right.
Final series, final season.
Right.
They really wanted to go for that like visual aid and stunning use of technology.
Right. Right. And like have it be a piece of art
Yes.
as opposed to just communicating a storyline.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree completely. So who would you say is your favorite character? I know immediately who my favorite character is. I'm like 50-50 that you're going to choose the same character as me, but I'm not 100% sold.
Yeah, so like it's
You're having to think about it.
Yeah. Like I want to say like it was Arya,
Okay.
but like
My second favorite character. All right.
Arya,
I can
like,
stand behind
yeah,
that.
like Arya was like I felt like I could rock with Arya. Like Arya was a woman of principle, and like she wasn't like out here just getting like bulldozed or ran over. Like she stood for something, and like she had a moral like she had a like not a moral compass or a moral high ground, but like she just believed. She believed in herself, and she believed in what she stood for. And she wasn't going to let anybody get in her way.
Yeah.
And like I have a very like I can respect that. As like with some other characters, like they had their flaws, and I don't know if Arya really had any flaws. Like,
Interesting.
or at least they didn't resonate with me. She had some flaws in that like she wasn't trying to be with the homeboy that like was proposed to her. Yeah, they proposed to her at the end. But like that's not really a flaw. Like that wasn't what she was trying to do. Like she wasn't trying to be booed up. Like she was trying to be on her own independence.
Interesting.
Like, I guess. And the Hound, like he was always grumpy, but like
he had a mission, and he was on his, he was devoted to the mission. Yeah.
And I and that like sense of like mission and getting things done, and like nobody's gonna get in my way. Like I can respect that hustle and that grind. So nice. Arya and the Hound.
Nice.
Who is your?
Well, as I briefly alluded to, my second favorite character is Arya, and for kind of similar reasons. She's a tomboy, and so her as a child, I could really identify with me as a child. You know, I like climbing things, I like roughhousing, I like, don't get me wrong, my room had pink all over it, and little bears and tutus, and ballet shoes, Leos, and I loved that too. So I'm not trying to say that I didn't have very girly aspects to my personality, but I identified with her more tomboy aspects, and I identified with the feeling of, she's going to do what she's very independent, and she's very headstrong. And so I immediately identified with her for that, and I liked her character for similar reasons that you said, that, she's not afraid to go off and do her own thing, but you watch her grow and become very resilient. She's a child and she's independent, but she's still very, depending on her family, and when she gets put originally, she's like, I forget exactly how, she runs away, doesn't she?
Yeah. Well, and she's like, her dad died, like, because her mom was still in the Winterfell.
Yeah. But so she's like with the ragtag group, and she has to be like a servant. Do you know what I mean? And like, so I see her very much, I mean, she's not like accepting, but in a way she is. In her mind she's like, I know I'm Arya of, House Stark, and I know that I am better than this right now, but I know that to survive, I need to be cleaning the floors and serving the gruel and, all this stuff. And so she, in that way, she accepts that role and very much is like, okay, I'm going to make this work. And I really liked that, and I like seeing the character development as she takes each opportunity to learn new skills and be very observant and learn more about other people, how the world works, how can she manipulate the situation to work to her benefit. So I really liked her character. But the character I liked most of all is actually Tyrion, because he's hilarious and just, you always know what you're going to get with him. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
I would say the one thing I didn't like about his character is I didn't feel like there was much character development. Like, the Tyrion you had at the beginning of this series is very similar. There was character development, but the Tyrion you had at the beginning is very similar to the Tyrion you got at the end. But I appreciated that throughout that whole time, he's very much upfront with who he is and what his goals are. He's extremely intelligent and good at manipulating. Yeah. And
I think, like, obviously, a lot of that is because of, like, the way his family was structured, and that, like, he was seen as, like, the midget and, like, the black sheep of the family.
Yes.
That, like, so he had to find a way to make his way through the world, and, like, being true to himself was really, like, the only way that he could survive in this world.
Right.
And, like, because he was, what was that family's name?
Lannister?
Yeah, because he was a Lannister, like, people weren't gonna, like, he didn't have to pretend to be anybody else.
Right.
Like, he could be himself.
Right. And I just thought it was also very interesting to see how he talked about his childhood, how he talked about the past, and how, his clearly strained relationships with his brother, sister, father impacted who he was as an adult and how he made choices going forward in the story. So I found all of that just really interesting. I really also liked the character development of Jaime Lannister in a similar way, but I was so disappointed when he went back to Cersei. Oh, so disappointed. But I feel like he was one of the characters that, in the beginning, there wasn't much character development. Like, he was very stagnant, and then he went through a couple seasons of a lot of change, and you got to see who he was as a person. He was growing, and it was really interesting, and the audience kind of got invested in him. Like, you went from hating him to kind of being more like, okay, I can get behind Jaime Lannister, and
he's definitely like a roller coaster. Like,
yes.
Yes, I can rock with Jaime. No, I can't rock with Jaime. Yeah. You probably start off, I can't rock with Jaime first.
Yeah. That's definitely how you start. I don't know, many people would start out like, yeah, I can rock with Jaime Lannister.
But, Jaime definitely, Jaime was just kind of, like, for me, Jaime, he wasn't, it wasn't it. Like,
yeah. See, I just like the character development. Like,
okay.
And I would say that's probably one reason why I didn't necessarily like Cersei's character. Obviously, she's one of the antagonists in the storyline. So you don't like her. She does things that most people don't agree with, right? Like, but given your comments about Arya, though, she's very true to herself. She doesn't let anyone stand in her way.
And I definitely thought, I definitely felt like Cersei. She did some bad things, but she did bad things with the right. Like,
she had conviction that she was doing the things she needed to do for the reasons she had. Yes. So, so I also respected that about her, but I obviously didn't like the things that she was doing or the things that she stood for. But again, the Cersei you had got at the beginning was the same Cersei you got at the end. Even more dug in her heels and even more
I thought the Cersei at the beginning, I thought she kind of took a step back throughout the series in terms of it wasn't very well thought out of the attack the dragons. With, I felt like she put thought into moves that she made before. It was very her character was very thoughtful in the things that she was going to do, and there was an objective, and there were steps that she was going to take. Mm-hmm. And I felt in the last season, for whatever reason, there is, all right, we're about to do this, and hope this. We're going to we're going to throw a Hail Mary. Right. And that's our game plan. Like,
kind of very just like head down. We're going for this. Like we're not. Yeah, and I would agree with that. And I also very much felt like at the beginning of the show, she was maybe less. It wasn't as apparent that she was so like attached and driven to these goals that she had, and like preserving the Lannister line and like us versus the rest of the world, and so I felt like her character kind of like had perspectives that got magnified, and she kind of like stepped back, and just those got bigger and bigger.
Yeah, and it's funny, like Cersei's whole like her kids were her most important. Like, what she valued the most.
Right. And they all got killed.
They all got killed because of her greed.
Right.
And, like, not want to just, like, if they're your most valued possessions, do everything within your power to keep them. And, like, hold on. Yeah. And she definitely, like, didn't do that. Or, like, with Joffrey, like, she kind of, like, let Joffrey do his thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And nobody was really going to tell Joffrey what to do. Like,
ain't nobody tell me nothing. My dude's favorite song.
So what are your thoughts on, like, Sansa?
So Sansa was a character that at the beginning I detested. I was like, ugh, she doesn't care about anything. She's, like, really vapid, like, just very shallow, like, yada yada. But she was a character I really liked by the time the season was over. And I guess I define characters that I like, not just like, I agree with them or I would act like them, but also if they have an interesting, their development. And storyline. And I felt like she had one of the best storylines, one of the best character developments, and you watch her grow from this very kind of timid, sheltered individual to someone who's has very strong conviction. Has gone through some terrible things, and she's seen terrible things. She's learned how crazy the world can be and how people can manipulate each other, and she's gotten to be a lot smarter about the world and a lot more, I guess, a lot less naive, and
I definitely agree.
More powerful. I loved at the end how she was like, "No, we're not going to join this union. Like, we're going to be our own queen. I'm going to be queen in the North," type thing.
I thought that was the dumbest thing ever.
I mean, I don't agree with it, but I probably wouldn't have done the same if it were me in her position. But I understand how and I respect the fact that she's like, you know what, this is what I want. I'm not afraid to ask for it anymore. Like, the way the world works, if I don't go out there and try to make this happen, like, no one's going to hand it to me. Like, it's now or never. I'm seizing this moment. Like, I know how different dynamics work, and I feel that I can, for lack of better words, like, get away with it at this moment. Right? Like, no one's going to challenge me right here. And
well, and it'd be funny if, like,
whereas, like, the Sansa at the beginning would never have done any of that.
Like, if Bran hadn't been named king, I don't think she's, like, they're able to...
Agreed. But because he already has been, she can use that opportune moment to declare her own kingdom. It'd be funny if something happened to Winterfell, and then they kind of crawling back to the kingdom, like, we need your help. Like, crawling back? What? They were the sole reason that the whole kingdom wasn't taken over by White Walkers. Winterfell defended the entire Seven Kingdoms. But all of the Seven Kingdoms, like, everybody sent soldiers there to help. Not really. The Lannisters didn't. But it was because of Cersei. Jaime came. One soldier. Yeah, like, that one soldier. All I'm saying is that, like, if something happens in Winterfell, I mean, I agree. You ain't got nobody to call on. That's the point of the Seven Kingdoms, like, to have somebody. No, I agree, but they in the Seven Kingdoms, like, they were their own independent kingdom, but they still, like, bowed to the throne. But like, I guess that doesn't really seem independent. But they had like a separate kind of inner between scenario. Yeah, I just don't think it was I don't think it was a very smart political move to be like, we're gonna get our independence now. We're not gonna bow to need anybody. We're just gonna do our own thing. That's totally understandable. I just was very impressed that Sansa had grown enough as a character to. Yeah, because you definitely wouldn't have done that. Right, right. Even in like season 4 or 5, when she was like married to Tyrion, you know, like there's all this stuff. So I really enjoyed her character development. I enjoyed Jon Snow's character just because it was so much of a, like, someone is doing the right thing no matter what, but I did not feel that there was all that much character development with him.
No, there definitely was not.
So it was,
and I felt like some of his best parts were that, like, was when he was featured with other women, right? Like, he was either, like, his scenes with other women where he kind of showed his depth as a man and, like, kind of showed, like, kind of a, not a softer side, but a more vulnerable, more open side. Like, that was some of his best scenes, and not necessarily, like, leading men. Like,
right.
He just happened to be the guy, like, there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily say that, like, he was a leader of men. Just for me, like, I thought his best character, like, and plot development was when he was with women in the show.
Yeah, I agree. And so I felt like, because that was just kind of interspersed a little bit, it wasn't like the main purpose of his character. That's why I felt like his character development was rather flat. So yeah, who is your least favorite character?
I would probably say
Bronn?
Bronn, yeah.
Wait, the sellsword or the Stark?
The Stark.
Okay.
The Stark boy. Bran, yeah. Like, I felt like he was completely useless the whole entire series. Like, he became the Three-Eyed Raven because of a whole bunch of work by a whole bunch of other people. Like, granted, he was, and those people, like, they contributed a lot to him to make him, like, who he was, and they put their life on the line for him. But he was literally, like, being drugged through the snow by the young lady. Like,
the two
corridor. Like, he was holding the door. Like, it was all, like, so many people helped him, like, get to where he is, and he did absolutely nothing. Like, he contributed zero. But in the end, he reached the throne.
Such is life.
Why do you think I traveled all this way for? Like, so he could be on the throne, and he did nothing. Like, for me, he would be
your least favorite character. I think my least favorite character is probably Varys. Just because I could never understand, like, what his game was, or, like, which side was he really on, or, like, what's he trying, I felt like he was very manipulative and, like, always meddling, but I could never really tell, are you trying to help the current king and queen? Are you against them? Like, he would just do so many contradictory things.
Well, I thought Varys, like, I like Varys. I thought he was always for the people.
Yes, he was always for the people.
His idea was, no matter what, no matter cost, I'm going to do what's in the best interest of the people. Because nobody, like, you can see at the end when when the guy's like, why don't the people vote? Like, why don't we have all the people? Yeah, when Sam's like, why should have all the people vote? Yeah. They're like, no, like, we can't have the people make this decision. And it just shows, like,
what does that have to do with Varys?
He would have the people's interest in mind.
So he would have agreed with
Yes,
Sam.
he would agree with Sam and be like, you know what? The people need to have a say, and it just can't be some, like, these head and figureheads making decisions. Like, we have to, because you guys all have your individual motives and individual, like, goals that you want to get to. And the people need to have a voice. And Varys was their voice.
I guess to me it's like what makes him think that he knows what's best for the people any more than anyone else, any other person in power, right? Like, him deciding, oh, Cersei's not what's best for the people, like, just because we as the audience happen to agree with him in that assessment, to me that's no different theoretically than Cersei saying, I'm what's best for the people. Like, it's just another person in power that's deciding for he's not giving a voice to the people. He's not allowing the people to make that decision. He's saying, I think this is best for the people. Just like any other head character is saying, I think this is best. But I guess I guess the difference is
But,
he
like,
may have the people in mind, whereas most of the other characters
they have their own
themselves
personal
in mind.
game. Yeah,
But that's another thing though. Is I know
like
towards the
Varys
end,
never had any he never had anything to personally gain.
That's where I'm not sure, because it wasn't clear to me until the last few seasons that he was for the people. The first few seasons, it very much to me seemed that he was also trying to play the game for his own personal game.
Well,
and
I
so
think in the early, I thought he was just trying to I'm just trying to stay alive, so and stay with
good graces.
Yeah, stay in good graces while trying to get into the position to do what's best for the people.
Interesting. It wasn't clear to me that he was trying to do what's for the best of the people until later on. But it was very clear for me, right from the beginning of, I'm going to try to stay in good graces, so I stay in a position of power. And so that's why, to me, I was very confused by his character and wasn't whose side are you on? What are you trying to do? Characters, usually good or bad, I could at least see what their motivation was and why they were doing what they were doing. So at some level, it was logical. But with Varys, it was really hard for me to understand what his motivations were, and so I didn't enjoy that constantly. What is happening? So I would say he is probably my least favorite. Or I also really didn't like, but he was kind of a simultaneous character I didn't like and I liked. The guy that Sansa had to marry, or not marry, but helped her, his sister. Or not his sister, but on the Eyrie, at the Eyrie. He married Kat's sister, who was Kat, the Stark mother, Catelyn Stark. So her sister lived in the Eyrie up tall.
Yes.
And this guy, boy? Not the little boy, the other dude,
the one that was always conniving, the backstabber.
Yes.
What's his name? Oh.
I can picture his face. And he was obsessed with Sansa.
Lord.
He was obsessed with Sansa because he was in love with Catelyn Stark, and Sansa looked so much like her.
Yes.
That guy. So he was one where I was interested because he was very much again trying to pull all these strings, and so it was interesting to watch that character observe the world, react to the world, and put his own things in place. I found that process very interesting. But I just didn't like him. I thought he was kind of slimy and grimy and he very much tried to pretend he had good intentions when he didn't. I just didn't like the character for who he was. But at the same time, I was very intrigued by the character development and how the plot line involving that character, I guess you could say. Because I felt like he was very important to a lot of the things. And he had a nickname, didn't he? Littlefinger, Peter Baelish, Lord Baelish.
Yes, Lord Baelish.
Littlefinger, that was the nickname. So yeah, that's how I feel about Lord Baelish.
I honestly didn't have he was definitely scum of the earth. And I feel in any show you gotta have a scum of the earth.
Scum of the earth, right? You gotta have the antagonists and protagonists.
People that get things done. But I never felt I felt he was a necessary evil. Mm-hmm. That's what I felt about Lord Baelish. And he was I don't know how people didn't figure out what he was doing sooner.
Yeah.
He was able to trick all these people and get all this power. That's hello, it's read the writing on the wall. But yeah.
Not everyone's as good as you at understanding people, baby. Sure.
I wish.
So really good series. I love discussing characters. I could do that all day.
Definitely, if you have not seen it, go and watch it. If you have, hopefully you enjoyed us talking about it a little bit. I think we're going to wrap it up here.
Yep.
Game of Thrones.
First sad year over.
We're done. 2-year wait.
For that last,
Those last 8 movies.
Movies, yeah. mini movies.
Yeah, mini movies.
But it's interesting you say that because I do feel like a lot of them felt more like movies than a typical episode, especially compared to prior seasons of episodes.
So were you happy with the ending?
I don't think I was as upset about it as a lot of people, for instance, on Twitter and everything were. I could see why. I definitely felt that certain things had to happen for there to be an acceptable ending. But I do feel like it was rushed and all just kind of... I feel like they really needed another 2 or 3 seasons maybe to wrap things up how it kind of needed to be wrapped up.
Yeah.
So, given the constraints of the problem, I understand why they did what they did, so I'm not, unhappy about it, but I wouldn't say it was the most satisfactory ending I could have imagined. How about you?
Yeah, I was okay with it.
Yeah, in general, I was okay.
Yeah,
like, the things that needed to happen happened.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't go down the way I would have hoped. I would have loved more storyline in some of the things.
And
but
more
like,
the political plot.
Exactly,
and,
but we still got to point B that we needed to get to. So like,
yeah,
that's why I felt acceptable then.
Yeah, and I wish we would have got to see Queen Daenerys be queen, and saw
and be
how
as
she
terrible. Have be the Mad Queen.
Yeah. And maybe she wouldn't have been that mad. Maybe she would have been alright and ruled in a just way. And then try to stop people from being in slavery. That's all she wanted to do. Free the world.
You can get behind that. Yeah.
Free the world so that you can all be indebted to me. Freedom. Yeah. Somebody's got to pay for it.
Freedom ain't free. Oh my goodness.
All right.
Great show. And that is what we've been doing.
Deuces.